Paige, want to introduce our speakers?
I would love to. So when we were talking about different topics to discuss for these meetings, one of them that came to me right away was speech, because most of the kiddos I've had have had speech issues. It just kind of has gone with the territory. So we reached out to Morgan, who is a, I gotta get this right, BECEP early interventionist speech and language pathologist, and Kristi Meuchel, who also works with BECEP, the early child special education teacher. So they're kind of just going to be talking about some tips and tricks, information to help deal with issues as we see them for the littles, and I look forward to the information. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us. All day I was really nervous because I don't talk to a room full of adults often. I talk to 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds, and I just kept thinking, don't do anything ridiculous.
Like, well, we can like bang and kick our hands.
You can throw a tantrum. Sure.
Awesome. We're here for you.
Well, then I got to the parking lot and realized I forgot everything, my notes, everything. So the worst has to be over now. So thank you guys for waiting, and sorry for wasting your time. We will hopefully make up for it with our presentation here. So the title of our presentation is Speech Language and the Link to Trauma. We first started, or my brother asked if I would come and share some information about speech and language. Why are so many foster kids having some difficulty, and what can we do about it in our community and in general? So we're going to chat about strategies, but we're going to talk a little bit about the connection of trauma and speech and language first. So that's how we'll get started.
So we will first introduce ourselves, which kind of has been done, just give you a little bit more information. We're going to talk about speech and language development, how those skills develop, what order they come in, when they should happen. Then we're going to cover that trauma link and what does having had trauma or neglect mean for a child when it comes to their speech and language development. And then in summary, what can we do now? How can we support these kiddos? How can we help them? And how can we help you? And we're going to give you some ideas, if you're interested, about some things you can do within your everyday routines to help kids make progress.
So like Paige said, I am Morgan. I am a certified speech language pathologist, and I've been practicing for about 8 years. The last 3.5 have been with the birth to 3 population, working with BECEP early intervention.
And as you heard before, my background is in early childhood special education. I taught in a preschool special education classroom for about 13 years. I spent a couple of years working with the K through 2 special education population, and now I have been with BECEP for 11 years, and I had one previous year in early intervention, so quite a bit of time with those littles.
So I love language, and I think quotes just mean so much. So I picked a few from the book, What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And this is the one I want to open with. So the way you treat a child from the time that child is born is what sets them up to either succeed or struggle. And so this is just an opening that from the minute they come into the world, what happens to them is super important.
So we will start by covering speech and language development from birth to 5 years, just to let you know what your kiddos should be able to do at those different ages and stages.
Okay, so from birth to 3, actually birth to 5, we're gonna see a lot of different milestones based on what source you're looking at. So the CDC recently changed their milestones, and it's been a big topic of discussion among the early intervention world. Some expectations were lowered, some were raised, and so we're not going to go over those today, but if you were to Google, you might find some differing opinions, but the milestones that we're going to go off of today are from the American Speech and Hearing Association. And so that's what we're going to talk about, and the expectations that we look for as professionals and what our testing tools have us look for so that we can identify children with needs. So for a 3-month-old, we are looking for cooing, using some different vowel sounds like ooh and ah. They should be smiling when they see another person, and they should have some different cries, from a different cry when they're hungry or in pain to maybe a whine when they want to be picked up. So another thing we should notice is quieting to familiar voices. So you should be able to calm them a little bit by maybe singing or talking sweetly to them. And they begin to notice sounds in their environment.
With kids from birth to 3, noticing sounds might look different from one child to the next, but some things you can look for could be just becoming still. When they hear sound, they might just really become still. You might see their eyes widen. Sometimes the opposite happens and they start getting wiggly. They might start to look around. At this age, we don't necessarily expect them to find where the sound is coming from, but you might see them start to turn their head towards the direction or start to look for it.
The next age range is from 4 to 6 months. And this age, it's really fun. You start to hear some speech sounds like ma, da, pa. You should start to hear some giggles, some of those really good belly laughs. You might start to notice that they have different sounds when they're happy and content versus upset. The big difference for this stage with understanding and hearing is that ability to turn towards the sound. So before 4 months, they hear it and they know something is going on, but maybe they can't find it. Between 4 and 6 months, they start to turn to easily find that new source of the sound. This is also a fun stage when they start to react to changes in voice. So if adults are using an angry voice, they might give big eyes and look at you. Or if you're using a soft voice, you're going to get those smiles. But it's really neat to see the difference here.
One of the great activities you can do with kids at this age to help promote speech and language development is to imitate the sounds they make. They're not yet able to imitate you, but you can imitate them and get some back and forth talking going. And by imitating them, eventually down the line, that will translate into them starting to repeat what you say. Another thing you can do with kids at this age is they're starting to now be able to figure out where the sounds are coming from. Play with that a little bit. Have a rattle off to the side and shake it and see if they turn their head to find it. When you approach them, if they're looking the other way, start talking before you get there, see if they turn towards you. So there are fun ways that you can practice these skills with kids during play.
From 7 to 12 months, the sweet baby giggles and babbles, they get a little bit longer and they start stringing together sounds. So at this point, they should be stringing songs, maybe 4 or 5 syllables long, maybe using some intonation that sounds like they're trying to tell you something, but we just don't quite understand it yet. Early gestures begin to emerge and become consistent, like waving, bye-bye, reaching up to be picked up, shaking their head. This is something that we should all start to notice before that age of 1. You should also start to notice some imitating of sounds. So animal sounds, maybe some uh-ohs or whoa. We want them interested in looking at our faces and starting to think, oh, what mom or foster mom and foster dad are doing, I want to do that too. So typically we look for kids to have 1 to 2 words by their first birthday. And keep in mind things like uh-oh or moo for a cow, we would count those as words. So in terms of hearing and understanding, babies this age should be looking in the direction of things you point at. So if you say, hey, look, they should be able to look at your hand and see, follow your finger, so follow the point. They should be responding to their name. This is a big one. By age 1, if a kiddo is not responding to their name and it's a name that they've been called consistently, that is something that we watch for and would be something that is important. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. They may begin to label some familiar items like ball, cup, puppy, and follow some directions like come here, let's go. They should also be responding to the word no. Now, that doesn't mean listening to the word no, but you should be responding. So that might look like pausing for a second and looking at you with a little smile and continuing. It might look like instantly crying because they know that you don't, what you're saying, but they don't want to stop. So we just want them to be responding, showing us that they're understanding some new things.
Social games are great at this stage. Songs with actions are another fantastic way you can work on communication skills. Social games would be those things like peekaboo, so big, pat a cake. Songs like Wheels on the Bus or Baby Shark. Everybody knows Baby Shark. I wish I would have written that song, like honestly, it's complicated. Even though the kids don't have the words yet to sing along with you, they can participate by doing the actions. And eventually you can start to get some of those words in there as well. I like to call some of these things baby tricks. It's like the thing when company comes over, like, oh my gosh, we want to show them. Baby tricks are awesome. Sometimes they have to be practiced for a while, so don't give up if it doesn't happen right away, but it's a great skill to work on and a great activity at this stage.
And I can see as I'm talking, some of you are, I can see like, oh, the child in my head that I'm thinking of, they're not doing what you're saying. And so I want you, if you do have a child in your mind that you are thinking of, maybe one that's in your home now, maybe one in the past, or just preparing for one that may come in the future, kind of keeping tabs on some of these concerns, and then we'll come back around to when do we reach out for help. So from 1 to 2 years, this is a time of huge expected language growth, and it varies from kid to kid. A lot of times we see kids go from 0 words to 200 in this time frame. And so things that I look for as a speech therapist at this time from birthday or from 12 to 18 months is imitating. Are they imitating sounds? Are they imitating animal sounds, car sounds, exclamations? Are they trying to imitate or are they not interested at all? We do start to see single words first to label usually people or favorite things. A lot of kids are motivated by food. So mama, dada, papa, wawa, more, eat, cracker. Those are some of those early first words. So between 18 months and 2 is when we should really start seeing 2-word phrases start and come more frequently. So to make a 2-word phrase, most kids need about 50 words to start combining them. So if you're trying to gauge, where is this kiddo at? By 18, we really want to see about 50 words so that we're moving to the next milestone. In terms of understanding, children this age should be able to point to some major body parts, like hands, feet, tummy, nose, mouth, follow some one-step directions, like go get your cup, put this in the trash, find your ball, look for things like where's your shoe, where's your coat, and be pointing to a variety of pictures in books. So if you're spending time together and you go, where's the cow? Where's the ball? Where's the tree? We would like, it's gonna start small, a couple around that, between 1 and 18 months, a couple, and it should grow quickly and have a large variety by age 2. So in this time frame, we see kids' interest in books really grow. So some of you may be thinking, oh my gosh, my 1-year-old won't even sit for 2 seconds to look at this book with me. And that's what I'm thinking in my head about my 1-year-old right now. But it's crazy how fast that can change. And we look for that shift in attention because it shows us a shift in interest and readiness to learn. So that is something that we're looking at here.
So just to add on to a couple of those things with body parts, I think a lot of us naturally start with facial features, working on the nose and the eyes and all of those. And if you feel like this kiddo's having a hard time with that, for some kids, working on a body part they can actually see on their own body makes it easier, like their belly button. If you're gonna tickle that little belly, they're gonna learn to pull that shirt up. But, where's your belly button? And then you give them a tickle or tickle toes. They'll lift their foot up so you can do that. So just remember, you don't always have to start with those things, even though that's what seems to come naturally to us. You can start with anything they can see that can be helpful. And as far as books, we do want kids to love books. Books are so important. There are so many studies that show the importance of reading to kids when they're little and how that impacts them in school. But toddlers are busy, and trying to get a toddler to sit down for a book can seem pointless sometimes, almost. So in the beginning, meet them where they're at. We want this to be fun. If we try to make them sit and stay and they don't like it, we're not establishing this is a good thing to do. This isn't fun for me. So if you can show them one picture as they run by you, and that's all you can do, start there. That's okay. Don't even worry about reading words. I'm not going to worry about reading words either. Don't even worry about the words. And honestly, a lot of times with kids' books, the pictures and the words don't even match up that well. Just talk about the pictures. Look at the picture, name it. Oh, puppy's eating. And you have them do some actions, make some sounds. You can give the puppy a kiss. You can pretend to do those things with the book or pet the puppy. And that way the baby can interact with the book, imitate some of those actions, maybe make some of those sound effects. And it can be quick. And if you only get through a page or two, that's okay. Maybe the next time it'll be 3 pages. So don't worry about starting quick. Don't worry about reading. Just develop that love for books. I'm gonna read my words again.
So between the ages of 2 and 3, children should be rapidly adding words to their vocabulary and combining 2 to 3 words spontaneously. So a lot of times what I hear at this age is they're talking a ton, but I cannot understand them. And what's normal? What should we be able to understand when a child is 2? And every child is different, but we kind of go by this rule or thought process. When kids are about 2, we expect to understand about half, so 50%. And that's for familiar listeners. The closer they get to age 3, it should be about 75% or most of what they say. And so those I think are some easy numbers to keep in mind. But it's kind of surprising because if you think I'm only understanding half of what they're saying, how much frustration is that leading to for both you and the child? But it is typical at that age. So children between 2 and 3 also start to understand, and they understand more than what they can tell us, and that's okay. That's typical. We'll talk a little bit about how big that can be later, but we want to see them following 2-step directions, like get your cup and put it in the sink, or find your shoes and take them to the door. That's something we should see. One thing we want to look at is, are children picking up new words quickly? So do you ever think, wow, I didn't know he knew that, or wow, I asked him that last week and he was really confused, but this week he's got it down. So that's something that we want to see too.
I just have a little idea for working on those 2-step directions. The word "and" is key in that. If you have a child who can, say, oh, go throw that paper in the trash, and they do, that's a 1-step direction. But if you put the word "and" in there somewhere, you can turn that same thing into 2. So pick that up and throw it in the trash. Instead of bring me your shoes, oh, get your shoes and bring them to me. It's more language to listen to. It's a little bit harder. It's amazing to watch how a child who will bring me to their shoes all day long, as soon as you say, go get your shoes and bring them to me, has no idea what to do. It's just too much language. So that shift is supposed to come at this point, and taking some of those things that you know they can do and turning them into 2-step directions is a really good way to introduce that.
So one important thing to remember is that at all the stages of development, we want to see some steady increases in growth. But it is possible for speech and language to pause while a different body system is developing. So a lot of times we might hear a few words, and then a kiddo turns 1 and starts walking, and we see that vocabulary growth slow down, and that's okay. But we just want to make sure that that plateau is not longer than about 1 to 2 months. So like Kristi and I said before, BECEP early intervention is just from birth to 3, but the intervention and importance of speech and language doesn't stop there. So we're going to talk a little bit about ages 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, and from there on, then you guys are on your own. But you don't want to hear us talk about language after that point. So, and BECEP and Morgan also has programs for kids between 3 and 5. So that's why we want to talk about it, because we do have access to those resources too. So 3-year-olds, they start to answer simple questions like, do you want to play? They might be yes and no questions, and it might be questions that have single word answers like, what do you want to eat? Noodles. So those are some things we should hear. They usually are using 3 to 4 word sentences or phrases. They might not be grammatically correct, but it could piece a whole idea together for us. They start to be conversational. They might try to tell you about something in their day. They'll go back and forth with you a few times and tell you short stories. In terms of understanding here, we want them understanding color words, shapes, and commonly used adjectives. And I usually see those in books like bumpy, big, little, short, tall. Those are some things we would want them to be understanding. And then you also see this shift in starting to understand relationships between people. They know when you say, oh, that's Tommy's sister. Oh yeah, I know what a sister is. Or, oh, that's Johnny's grandma. They start to realize what that means. So, between ages 4 and 5, this is where intelligibility becomes very adult-like. So it should be close between 90 and 100% intelligible. There are some kiddos who will still struggle with some later developing sounds like S and R. Those ones are tough. They should be counting, naming letters, telling you short stories. They might be true, they might be false, but they should be talking. They should be talking your ear off, and you're thinking, wow, I used to think this, I wanted them to talk so much, and now I just want them to be quiet. So that's kind of my favorite thing to hear is when parents tell me, now she won't stop. So that we look for that around this age too. The other thing that we notice here is that children between 4 and 5 can finally start to control that inside voice versus the outside voice, right? And when we're 2, I'm like, no, don't talk that loud, or use your inside voice. They're not quite able to do that. But 4 and 5-year-olds, we should start to see that, and they should be able to control that. And maybe talking differently to a younger sibling or a younger child, using a baby voice and short words or phrases compared to when they're talking to mom or dad, or adults that they're using some longer phrases and a little bit more information. This stage for understanding, we start to see them understanding concepts like first and next and last. So they say, I want a treat, and you say, first you need to take a bath. Next, you need to get your pajamas on, and then you get a treat. They're gonna start understanding those time concepts. And also things like yesterday, tomorrow, today. I feel like at younger ages, we can't tell kids you have a birthday party tomorrow because they don't understand tomorrow. They think it's right now and in 5 minutes or when they wake up from nap. But around this age, we start to understand that when yesterday, tomorrow, and today are. So we also see them understanding longer directions. We're able to use some bigger concepts, and that's going to go up longer and more complex as they age.
So having covered all that information about how speech and language development is supposed to happen, how do I know if my child has a speech or language disorder? We're going to go over some of the red flags, some of the concerns that we see, things that would make us feel the child may need some intervention. First one being that if a child doesn't show an interest in people, in interacting, in having those shared experiences, they're not making eye contact, looking at you to see what your reaction is to something, we really are looking for that engagement, that interaction, and that wanting to be social with kids. It's important for all areas of development.
The next thing that we look for is responding to their own name by 12 months. So we hit a little bit on this earlier, but this is a big milestone. And if this is something you don't feel like your foster child is doing yet, this would be a good indicator that it's time to evaluate or look into what resources we have. because that can kind of be one of our first signs that speech and language isn't coming along as it should be.
One of the foundational skills for speech and language development is imitating actions. Prior to a child being able to imitate words or even speech sounds, or even silly sounds, they can imitate actions. And so one of the things we look for, even before age 1, you know, if I tap the high chair tray, is the baby going to repeat what I did? If I bang 2 blocks together, then hand blocks to the baby, will the baby do that too? We want to see some imitation of those types of simple actions.
The ages that we have up here, Kristi and I kind of came up with those in terms of if we don't see a child doing it by this age, that's time. So that's time to seek some help. We're giving a lot of grace. A lot of times we see this much sooner than the ages up here, but the ages we have here are like, okay, we need to look into it. So just like Kristi said, imitating simple actions, I want to see kiddos imitating sound effects and single syllables. So most often kids are not going to do simple sounds if they're not doing simple actions. So we want to see them in sequence, but if your kiddo is not doing that by about 15 months, give us a call.
Morgan mentioned earlier that it can be normal for a child to have a plateau in skills when they're really working on something big in another area. But again, we don't want that to be an extended period of time. We don't want to say, oh yeah, they've got 3 words and they have for 6 months, but never learned another, or losing skills. Sometimes you'll hear a child say a word once and they won't again, but that shouldn't be the norm. That shouldn't be the way it usually goes. We don't want to hear they have 5 words at 12 months and at 16 months only have 1.
One thing that we hear a lot is, oh, we have such a good baby, or he's such a quiet baby. And for me, that is not always a good thing. So we want to hear babbles, we want to hear jabbering. I like when parents tell me, oh, he will not stop, he's screaming all the time. Talking all the time, not crying all the time. So if we are not babbling in long strings by about 15 to 18 months, that would be a good thing for us to get involved with.
The next one's a little bit tricky just because 18 to 20-month-old kids are busy and they're not going to always sit down for a book. But we want to see some ability to sit and focus on an activity for a while. And you know, maybe this is before bed or before nap or after waking up. Sometime when the child is calm and maybe a little bit tired after you've been to the playground, we want to see that ability to sit and focus and join in an activity with you for a few minutes.
Not following routine directions. So routine directions are things like put this in the trash, but they're also things like, hey, it's time to take a bath. And do we see that the kiddo is understanding that and acting on that? So when we say put this in the trash, do they pick it up and start going to the garbage? Or it's time to take a bath, do they start pulling their pants down or heading up the stairs to the bathroom? I want them to show us that they're understanding and anticipating what comes next.
And as we mentioned before, by 2, we like to see those 2-step directions. They're able to listen to more language at a time, take it in, and understand what they're being asked.
And we talked a little bit about answering questions. If you are asking your 2.5-year-old questions and they are just repeating what you're saying instead of responding to what you're asking, that would be something we look for to as a good sign to evaluate.
Morgan mentioned earlier that it is typical for a child to understand a little bit more than what they're saying, but we don't want that to be a really big gap. We don't want to, to hear that, oh yeah, this kid can follow 3-step directions, they know absolutely everything we're saying, but then that child only has a few words it can use. So there is, like I said, a slight difference between the 2, but that shouldn't be a big difference.
So another quote, and it's from the same book, What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah. The lesson for me was that a key aspect of what happened to you is what didn't happen for you. So what attention, what nurturing, touch, reassurance, basically what love didn't you get? And I realized that neglect is as toxic as trauma.
That emotional connection, that love, that attention, that responsiveness, that's the foundation for all development. The connections that we build on the outside through those interactions, through that bonding, through that responsiveness, that's what builds the neural connections for that baby on the inside in their brain. That's what babies need to learn and to grow. It's the foundation for all learning.
So in order to understand how trauma and neglect can impact speech and language, we have to first think about how do we develop speech and language. And so what
Leslie, for some reason, we can't hear anymore online.
why does it matter? Why are we telling this to you? Why are we here? And what we know is that early language delays that persist or go untreated can impact a child's success in school. And we really start to see that when we switch from learning to read to reading to learn. We know that early intervention can help. There is research. Evidence shows that early childhood education can have a positive impact on language development for kids. We also know that abused and neglected children tend to be under-identified and underserved. And so a lot of times we don't know that these kids are out there that have these struggles. So we need your help to bring them to us and to get them the services that they need. Maybe their home environments were not able to do that. And when they move into your home, you have this ability to open the doors for them. Another thing that we know is the effects of early childhood trauma can greatly impact the developing brain. And that can make it hard for kids to show quick progress, even when given intervention.
What can help that though is building that relationship. Having a caring, bonded relationship with an adult can really protect children and help them recover from the effects of ongoing stress. So, behaviors and communication. Behaviors is a big thing. Kids under 3 aren't reasonable. Not at all.
Amen.
So I think it's important, and we could talk for hours about behaviors. We could talk for hours about how to manage behaviors, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of information for you to maybe take and look more into, to get some ideas and some support. One of the things I really like to remind people of behavior is communication. You know, it might not be using words, but it is telling you something. There's a reason, there's a purpose for behavior. Sometimes kids want something. Sometimes they want to get out of something. Sometimes they're seeking attention. You know, there's a lot of different reasons that we might get behaviors. So trying to figure out what is the motivation, what is this child really trying to tell me, can help you decide how best to react and how to support the child in that. Co-regulation, that's a big word. You know, I think it's an important word. I think it's something everybody who has kids, works with kids, needs to be familiar with. We can't expect kids to self-regulate at this age. As adults, we don't always do a very good job of this. Really, kids need co-regulation at least till age 7 and sometimes past that. And what that really means is we want to model for them. We want to show them where we want them to be. If they're way up here, we need to show them being down here. You know, we can't go up there with them, but we're all going to stay up there and it's going to turn into something. So, you know, the other thing I like to mention too is that a lot of times we tell kids, you know, stop crying. I mean, I'm not saying we do this all the time, but you know what I mean. It's almost like we don't think they should have their emotions. You just got to be happy all the time. Well, that's not going to be the case. Naming those emotions for them, helping them find appropriate ways to display that by what we model can help them figure out how to handle these emotions as they get older. It's okay to feel all the feels. We just got to learn how to deal with that. Some of the things you can think about when your child is having some issues is the environment. What can we do with our environment to help kids remain more calm? Is it overstimulating? Is it too loud? Are the lights too bright? Is it too crowded? You know, what can we do environmentally to help this child feel more calm? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they tired? These are really big things to consider because, I mean, I don't think anybody can have a tantrum like a tired, hungry 3-year-old. You know, and when you look into working with kids who've experienced trauma, having water available is something that has been shown to be really important, really helpful, as well as regular snacks. Just having that there. Some kids like protein, some kids like carbs, but you know, knowing what works best for your kid, that's kind of a trial and error thing. Being consistent with expectations, words, and routines. And I don't mean 100%, nobody is, but if you try to keep your expectations consistent, your responses consistent. Environment for kids as well. For some kids, using some visuals can be helpful. A schedule of what's going to happen, like you mentioned, the birthday party tomorrow. You know, 3-year-olds don't get that. Sometimes just being able to show them, first we're doing this and then we're gonna do that. When they're having trouble with language, sometimes those pictures can be helpful. Show them a picture of Target, we're going to Target, then we're gonna go see grandma, and then they understand what's going to happen. Timers can be really helpful when it comes to transitions. If you need to leave the playground or you need to clean up toys to go do something else, it's almost like they blame the timer and then not you. It's a learning process, doesn't happen right away, but timers definitely can be helpful. I don't want to be that guy. But really the big thing I think is modeling that emotional level that you want them to see, remaining calm, having the soothing voice and supporting them, and knowing that kids they're not trying to upset you. They're not trying to be naughty. They're struggling with emotions. That is the only way they know to get it out. And it's up to us to support them and model for them and help them learn the ways to do that appropriately. There are a lot of resources out there for you to look into. Conscious discipline is something that's used quite a bit in the schools. I Love Your Rituals is a book by Becky Bailey. It's a lot of little like nursery run kinds of things that are just about building bonding and connection and building up those good feelings in kids. There's a couple of podcasts that were recommended by coworker. Full disclosure, I don't listen to them. I only listen to entertainment. I don't listen to work stuff, but Unruffled by Janet Lansbury and Connected Parenting, Jennifer Cullen, I believe is how you say her name, were a couple of podcasts that were recommended that talk about dealing with kids and dealing with difficult behaviors. One other thing I'll mention too is practicing some calm down techniques and modeling them for them when you're upset. Taking a deep breath, using your words to express your emotions, showing them what you do when you're upset can help them learn what to do. I wouldn't try any deep breathing or calm down techniques with a child while they are upset, unless this is something you've been doing. Practice that when they're not upset. Talk about when you don't feel it. Take a deep breath, blow up your balloon, and let it collapse back down. Sometimes kids need a calm down space, a little tent or a little fort type area, somewhere that is calm with a few stuffed animals and a pillow, or somewhere they can go and get away from everything and just have a little bit of space to themselves can be really helpful. So that, I know behavior is a huge thing, and that's just a couple of little snippets of ideas and resources, but we will have some time for questions and answers. And I think the important point that we wanted to make really here is just trying to figure out, what is this child trying to say to me? As communication skills improve, some behaviors should decrease, not necessarily all, but just know that even if it's not going to always come out in a way other than a tantrum, they're still communicating with you.
Oh, look at that, another quote. It's from the same book. I really like this book, you guys. Check it out. One of the most remarkable properties of our brain is the capacity to change and adapt to our individual world. Neurons and neural networks actually make physical changes when stimulated. This is called neuroplasticity. I mean, think about that. You guys can have such an impact that you can change the way their brains are working. You can change how they're functioning. And I think that's really cool. So one of the most important things that we want to talk about today is the resources that we have here in Bismarck and Mandan. So the little sheet of paper that I send out to you or put on your tables has a QR code on it. And that QR code is going to take you to the BECEP page. And that is going to take you to a little problem solving, ask you a couple questions, and then get you to the right spot. Do we have concerns? What do they look like? So we'll give you a little rundown of what we have here. And if you guys are interested, or if you have kids in that 0 to 3 range, it would be great to take a look at that QR code and we can get you to the right spot.
I had one quote and I forgot to say it, so I'm backtracking. You don't have to go back. It is a good one. I think as a parent, for me personally, keeping this in mind has really helped me from most of the time reacting in a positive way. it's from conscious discipline, and I think these are just words to live by. Discipline is not something we do to children. It is something we help children develop within themselves. I think if we can approach behavior from that standpoint, we're going to do some good things.
I'm so glad we did that.
So Right Track. Right Track is one of the programs that's under the BECEP umbrella. Right Track is a free program that is available to all people. This is something that people should and can take advantage of, even if you have no developmental concerns. They are a wealth of knowledge about development activities. They have so many good ideas and so much good information to share. When babies are born in the hospitals, they're given information. They can sign up. Like I said, there's no income. You don't have to have concerns. It is for everybody. They come to your home. They do screenings in your home for kids up till age 3. When kids are doing well, they may only come once every 6 months or so. If there are areas they want to watch, they will come more frequently. If there are concerns, then they will ask the family if they want to be referred for further evaluation, which would be with us, early intervention.
And so after you get the referral to early intervention, and that can come from Right Track, it can come from you, it can come from a teacher, it can come from anyone can refer to our program. But the difference between Right Track and early intervention is Right Track sees you a couple times a year. We see you on a more frequent basis. You do need to be eligible for early intervention. It's from 0 to 3, and we have certain criteria. So we start with an evaluation, and we test all areas of development. Even if you're just concerned with speech or just concerned with walking, we're going to check all of those areas. And we come to you. So we come to your home, we go to the child's daycare. If you guys are having trouble at the grocery store, then we'll meet you at the grocery store. I hope you don't ever see me at the grocery store with my 3 kids. But I will meet you there to help with your kids at the grocery store. So we'll come anywhere, and we can do services. We want to do it in the natural environment, and we want to do parent and caregiver coaching. So we want to lead each session with something for you guys to think about and how you can implement that strategy throughout the rest of the week. So that's one big difference from our program compared to an outpatient model, is that parent coaching piece, where we feel that the hour that we get with you and your child each week can be so much more helpful if we can train the daycare provider or grandma and grandpa or mom and dad on strategies to use. But if your kiddo is over.
And just to add one thing too, that there are 2 different providers for early intervention in our area. And you have the option of picking either BECEP, which is our program, or Kids program, which is headquartered out of Dickinson, but they have stuff in Mandan and they serve this area as well. Once a child reaches age 3 and is no longer in our program, or if concerns didn't come up until age 3, then there is an early childhood special education program through Bismarck Public Schools, as well as in Mandan. And actually all of the small towns have some types of services as well. And they do screenings to see if kids might need these services in Bismarck. Every month there's a screening date. You can call BECEP and just ask to be put on that screening list. Or when you have concerns, when you share those concerns, if you feel they're significant enough, or they might bypass that screening and go right to evaluation. If kids qualify for preschool services based on scores at age 3, then they would attend the preschool program free of charge and receive speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, whatever types of services they needed in that setting. And the purpose behind that is really to get kids as ready for kindergarten as possible, so that by the time they get there, they need as little support as possible, that they can just be there with the general education and doing everything everybody else is doing. Mandan does not do preschool screenings over the summer, but you can call over the summer and get put on the list for the fall. Under the BECEP umbrella, and then again also separately in Mandan, there is a Head Start program. BECEP also has an early Head Start program. That is a birth to 3 program that is also in the home, which, like Head Start, is for families with low income. It's created to promote school readiness for infants, toddlers, and preschool age children. They're hoping that because the families who qualify for this income-based are probably not going to be able to access community preschools due to the cost. So it's providing them an opportunity to have that experience, get that early education that's important. The Early Head Start program, there she can serve 2 pregnant women, and then it's around 10, 12 kids total that she serves here in Bismarck. In Mandan, it's called West River Head Start program. The children that they serve come from many different family arrangements, including children in foster care. Although it is an income-based program, if a child is in foster care, they do not consider the income of foster family for placement. If a child is in foster care, they work closely with both the foster care worker and the foster family to ensure that the child is successful and their needs are met. They take applications for Early Head Start and Head Start year-round, and they can fill vacancies as they occur from the waiting list. So, you know, if you have a child who's that 3-5 age, I've had a foster parent in the past say, well, you know, we send our children here, but if she goes home, she won't be able to go there. And so Head Start, you know, might have been a good solution in that situation, just because if the child started there, then they would be able to continue in the school they're comfortable in if they were reunified with their birth parents.
So some other programs that we have or options are outpatient clinics in the area. We have a lot of great facilities in Bismarck and Mandan. Some even outreaching to Beulah and other surrounding areas. Outpatient is going to differ for the model of service delivery. So instead of parent coaching, outpatient is where you get that one-on-one therapist-child drill for about 30 minutes. And both are good. A lot of our kids in early intervention are in outpatient too. We work well together, we get releases signed, we communicate, we talk to each other. And outpatient is available for kids or for anybody. But if you have kids above age 5 or above age 7 that you have speech and language concerns, behavior concerns, some outpatient may be the best option. We have two other options I'll touch super quick on. The Scottish Rite, that is kind of a one-man show, one-woman show. She is a speech therapist. She serves kids from ages 2 to 7 in about a 50-mile radius of Bismarck. And this is an income-based, so if the cost of therapy is concerning or too much, and we're above 3, where those services are free, this can be a reduced rate or even free, depending on the financial need. So this is great for kiddos in foster families or ones that transfer back home. The other option that is really unique to Bismarck or places that have college programs with speech is a pro bono clinic out at the University of Mary. One of those directions. So they fill up quickly, but if you are okay with your kiddos seeing a graduate student, all the students are supervised by a certified speech language pathologist. You are going to get excellent care, and they are always willing, if they're full, they will take your name, they'll put you on the list. It is, if you're up north, it's a bit of a drive, but it's a great opportunity if you're wanting to look into that too. All right, we made it. I was so nervous about making an hour, but if you start 15 minutes late, So I appreciate you guys still staying here. Does anybody have any questions for us, or did bring anything to light that you want to ask, or maybe we weren't clear on something that you want some clarification on?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll use the mic question and I can ask anybody else who wants to. Okay, let's see if I remember my questions. I guess one of them was you had mentioned something about repeating a question rather than answering it. And I dealt with this with a 5-year-old and it drove me absolutely bonkers. How was school? School. Did you have for lunch? Lunch. And I've never been around this before. That's a thing? That's something that can happen, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. So when you think about how we're teaching kids to learn language, we want them to imitate, right? So we say moo, and they say moo, and we say, yay, you did it, I'm so happy you did it. And we say, want water, and they imitate us, right? So we're training and helping these kids learn to imitate. And then all of a sudden, between 2 and 3, well, between 1.5 and 3, there's this shift of, well, now you don't want me to imitate anymore. I don't understand what you're wanting me to do, because what you asked me to do for the last year or 2 years of my life was copy, and that's what I'm doing now. So a lot of times that is when we see that understanding being the problem. They're not understanding that you're asking a question that has a different response. So they might have the words, and you know you can say these words, but that's where I would look first, is to check comprehension and to see, okay, do we need to backtrack a little bit? Maybe we do some practice with another sibling, or maybe another adult in the room, and you say, how was your day? And that person says, good. And then you go to your child and say, how was your day? Oh, he said good. So I'm going to do that, because I'm learning these social cues. So first I would check understanding, and then what do you do about it? I would start modeling, and then you model the answer too. So if you say, how was school? And they say, school was fun. It was fun. You know, I'd always do positive. Yeah, great, we love school. So we're gonna model. We're gonna show them how you respond. But a kiddo at 5 that's doing that, I would benefit from an evaluation to check that understanding. Good question.
Okay, another question. I promise I'll let other people talk too. So we got a sibling group in, and my husband actually thought they were speaking Japanese, and he made me call the caseworker to find out if they knew Japanese. They did not know Japanese. They had their own language. They understood each other, but nobody else understood a word they said. Like, have you run into that? How does that happen? And is that even harder to get over than, because they seemed content with just understanding each other. They didn't need anybody else. So it was very difficult to kind of break into that, and just wondering if that's something that we've seen before.
I want to hog the mic here. So yes, I have seen that. I see it with twins a lot. I have my own twins, but I also see it with sibling groups. And when, especially with the abused and neglected, or ones that have shed trauma, the only interaction they might have had, or positive interaction, may have been from their siblings. And so they are making sounds, and instead of mom and dad being there to shape those sounds, so they speak Japanese, and mom and dad aren't there to say, yeah, ball, look, it's a ball. But brother is sitting next to there and cool, and responds in that way. That's the positive interaction that fosters growth. So when they see the positive interaction from brother or sister, that gives them the, oh, I'm going to do more of this. And without that model in the very early stages to shape or form those correct words, that's where we get these own languages, or they're speaking a different language, nobody understands it, but they understand each other, because even though they don't know the words, they have formed this connection with each other to know exactly what they're talking about. So yes, we see it. I like seeing that versus nothing, because they know to use their voice to communicate. They know their voice is powerful. It can be challenging. It can be frustrating, but we have something there to work with and to start shaping. So we go back to the beginning. We start with those animal sounds, vehicle sounds, and we build our way up, but never discouraging the sounds that they're making, because we want them to feel confident and know, you're right, you use your voice to tell me something. I don't know what it is right now, but we're going to figure it out together and model the language that we're using at home.
I wish I had met you 2 years ago. All right, is there any other questions? I'll pass the mic.
I just have a comment. your author is actually from Bismarck, North Dakota. Do you know that?
Yes.
He's a psychiatrist from Bismarck, yeah?
Yes,
Yes, he is.
My question is just the books and the podcasts that you listed, will you provide those to
Yeah.
us?
Podcast
Yeah.
and book, yeah.
yeah.
That would be great, because I would like those two.
Me too.
Yeah.
Even though Kristi, you don't listen to them, but I would.
Yeah. Those were a really good source. I have checked out Unruffled, a little snippet. We talked about it. I should probably listen before we go. She was really catching. She was captivating. And I think I just listened to a little bit, but I've heard it recommended to me before too. So I think it's definitely worth a listen.
One of our coworkers who has done a ton of training and a ton of learning when it comes to social emotional development is the one who recommended these, so I'm gonna guess she knows what she's talking about. If you guys don't have any more questions, we have one more slide we're gonna just quickly show you with some ideas, just strategies you can use every day within your typical routines. So first one being introducing sign language. Baby sign, you can, if you don't know what sign is, you can Google it and you can see a video. Using a few basic signs with babies is a great way because as we talked about, they're gonna imitate actions before they can imitate words. So you can get a child, perhaps signing more, signing eat, before they have the ability to use that word. The other really nice thing about it is when you are signing and speaking, that child is taking that information in, both auditory and both visual. And when that happens, it just makes a little bit bigger of an impact on the whole brain. They're gonna learn it a little bit faster that way.
Just a note on that, the research, of course, it shows that learning sign helps language come along faster. So it doesn't prevent kids from using speech. It actually helps those words come quicker. So a lot of times I hear parents say, I don't want them to use their hands, they want them to use their voice. And so do I. And we're working on that, but sign is a great way to start. So one of my favorite strategies to start with is choices. So going throughout your day, there's so many times we're like, get your clothes on, get your shoes, we need to get in the car. And kids are like, no, we're not gonna do that in 5 minutes, and it's because you told me to do it. So how can we give
Are you
them?
talking about kids now or teenagers?
I was thinking husbands, I don't know. This you can use with your teenagers.
Okay. Wait, can I record you? Oh, no, he's leaving.
So basically, we're gonna give them 2 choices to get to the same point. So if we say, we're potty trained, do you wanna go to the bathroom? And they say, no. Okay, well, darn it, like you were supposed to say yes and just go. Well, you can give them choices. Okay, it's time to go to the bathroom. Should we hop like a bunny or gallop like a horse? Now they have some control and they're gonna have fun. A little bit older, they probably don't want to gallop like a horse. You say, okay, you're going to school today. And they say, no, I'm not. Okay, you say, do you want me to drive and give you a big kiss at the front door, or do you want to get on the bus yourself? It's up to you. You're giving them choices. You're giving them some control. So, but it can work, giving them choices to, like, for snack time. Instead of them saying, and you go, oh, I know he wants goldfish. I'm going to the counter. I'm getting goldfish. Here you go. Hey, no frustration. We got it met. But we lost an opportunity for imitation. So they go to the pantry, they point, and they go, and you go, eat? Are we hungry? Do we want to eat? And yeah, that's it. You open it up. Okay, crackers or apples? Which one? You're holding the crackers and the apples. Now we gave them an opportunity. Do you want to copy? Are they going to copy that word? Or make a sound and go, yeah, you said apple, here's apple. So giving choices can be super helpful all the way up from birth to the end. Okay, and responding to all attempts at communication. So that's kind of when we think our kiddos are talking Japanese or they're going We don't ever want to negate, like, oh, they're not talking, I am not listening. I'm I know my brother's like, oh, you probably ignore your children all the time. Don't pull my cover here now. Even if the answer is no, we want to acknowledge, I hear what you're saying, you cannot have candy right now. It's okay, sometimes the answer is no, but we're gonna acknowledge all those attempts. So if they say for apple, hey, that's great. Next time we're gonna shoot for apple. But they say, you said apple, yes, here's your apple. We wanna build that confidence, we wanna build that excitement around talking so that we try them. Because if we squander their willingness to try, now we've broken their spirit, we've discouraged them, and that's a hard place to get out of. So we want to give credit to all attempts, and then we work on getting them closer and closer to the adults form.
Modeling and wait time. Modeling, we've talked about model what you want them to say. If you want the child to say apple, we're gonna hold it and say apple and look at them expectantly. But we need to give them some wait time. We're gonna say it and look at them with that look on her face, and they're gonna look at us and be like, oh, it's like she wants something. She wants me to say that. And then they're, how do I get that to come out of my mouth? That wait time is really important. And really giving the child 7 to 10 seconds. It seems like an eternity when you're sitting there and staring at them. But that's really a good amount of time to give them to process, think about what's supposed to happen, and then try to get that word to come out. If it doesn't, that's okay. You can say it again and move on. Sometimes, especially when it comes to food, if you try to hold some goldfish for 10 seconds while the child wants them, they're going to lose it. So you may not start with 10 seconds. You may not have that long in every situation. Sometimes you can build up to it because they'll realize, oh, she's going to hold it for a while, but then I'm going to get it. But just make sure that when you're modeling something that you want them to repeat, you're giving them that wait time so they have time to think about it, process, and then attempt.
And on that note, the wait time is silence. It's so hard not to say, what do you want? What do you want? Tell me what you want. Do you want an apple? Do you want milk? What do you want? That's not wait time. So that 10 seconds, that 7 to 10 seconds is uncomfortable for us, but it's silent. The next one is getting active listening attention before giving instruction. So if you are at the kitchen sink and you're doing dishes and you say, Johnny, go get your shoes, and he's playing or running around or coloring and he doesn't listen to you, that is not following directions, because was he even attending? So to know if a child can follow directions, we have to get their attention. So we say their name first. We might get on their level. We might make sure we are face to face with them, making eye contact, and say, okay, Johnny, go get your shoes. He's looking at you. Now, if he doesn't go do it, okay, we think maybe he's not understanding. But if we don't have that active listening attention, it's really not a fair assessment of what they can do. So sometimes that can be hard because we're doing 100 different things at the same time, but getting them to look at us, make that eye contact. I know you're listening. We always turn on our listening ears. Turn them on. Okay, good.
It's important when kids are learning how to talk that they watch what our mouth is doing. Even infants will sometimes imitate sticking out tongue, doing some things with your mouth. When you're talking to an infant, you'll notice they start, for a while, they watch your face. After a while, they start really zoning in on your mouth. They're watching your mouth move. So when we're trying to get a child to repeat us or imitate words, getting them to look at our mouth is important. And if I'm holding their goldfish over here and that's what they want, they're probably going to look at their goldfish. If I bring the goldfish up by my face, then I'm going to get them looking at me. So when you're modeling the word, if you're holding that object, hold it up by your face when you say it. You're going to get them checking out what your mouth is doing a little bit better than if it's over here.
This one is so simple, but so not natural. When you are sharing in book time with your little kiddos, sitting face to face instead of having them in your lap, right? I feel like the natural thing is to have their back to your belly, the book's in front of you, but they can't see your face. They don't know how you're making these sounds. But if you turn them around so they are facing you and you're sitting on the floor, you might even be laying on your stomach and your book is right by your chin. They can see your face, they can see the pages. It's actually really cool. I'm not saying don't snuggle. We usually snuggle while we read before bed when we're trying to calm down. But if it's daytime reading, turn those kids around so they can see your face as you read.
We mentioned this before, talking about the pictures and using actions and sound effects when reading the book instead of reading the words. You know, when you're kissing the baby, you can add a sound effect. Mwah. When you're pretending to eat, you can make a little sound. So when you're sitting face to face, that's a great way to model that, and hopefully you'll get some imitation.
But be careful, my 5-year-old still eats and goes, no. So it comes along, but it might stick around longer than you want. This one I think is so important too. Labeling versus asking questions. He doesn't have to show. He can talk. We want him to know.
Sorry, a little stuff.
Please, more. So labeling instead of questions. I actually saw a kiddo today who talks in phrases and he goes, what do you want? What is that? What do you want? What is that? What is that? No. No. Because parents sometimes get in that quizzing phase. Or what color is this? What number is this? Can you say this? And you're like, no, I don't know that word yet. Because we're asking too many questions and not labeling. So a better way to go through a book, instead of pointing to all these farm animals that they don't know yet, or what does a cow say? What does a duck say? We're going to label instead. We're going to say cow. Cow says moo. Wait. Duck. Look at the duck. Oh, ducks go quack, quack, quack. Instead of what's this? You're laughing at me. That's like you all day long. And kids love it. They want to see the silly sounds. So if you can, it's hard. But if you think about how many questions am I asking my kids versus how many things am I talking and teaching them, it can be surprising.
Look at behavior as communication. Try to figure out what is this child trying to tell me. There's something behind it. Knowing what it is the first step in figuring out how to handle it. And that can be something different every time.
I don't even want this one because how did I end up on this one?
Limit screen time. You know, I just limit screen time. It's kids spend a lot of time on screens, and I'm not one to say that you can't spend any. I'll tell you the day that my kid would sit for 30 minutes and watch a cartoon so that I could make a meal was a good day at my house. But we really need to watch that and limit that. Kids may pick up some words, they may learn some concepts, but they do not learn how to interact with people. They don't know how to have conversation. They don't know how to respond when people talk to them. I think screens have their time and place. If you are flying somewhere with a toddler, let them watch. Everybody will thank you. That's okay. But we just really need to be careful that they're not spending too much time in front of a screen. We put in here, look up the recommendation and we forgot to, so we didn't. I know.
I looked it up, but I did you put it in.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll never say, because we thought maybe it had changed, so we didn't want to say it if it wasn't.
I know, I thought maybe because of COVID, it had changed, like it was now okay to watch first grade because life was so hard. But it's not, it hasn't changed. So the actual recommendation for children under 2, what do you guys think it is? What do you think is, yeah, you know. So there you go, yeah. It's 0. It's no screen time under age 2. And there are so many homes that we walk into where we are seeing hours where maybe the screen is the babysitter and it's hours. And we are seeing the impacts on social and speech and language hard. So this is one, it's hard to talk about. It's hard to walk into a home and say, can we turn the TV off? But in your homes, you get to control that. So I'm surprised everybody knew that. I thought the 0 was a big surprise, but I guess not. So alternate activities. Another thing, guys, we're gonna be done, I swear. The last thing is, if you are gonna watch screen time and you're able, interacting during screen time. So I don't know if anyone has toddlers in this room, but Miss Rachel,
Yep.
You know who Miss Rachel is?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Good for you. So she is all the rage right now with the early intervention world. It's the kindergarten teacher who puts on a speech.
She's annoying.
I know. She is annoying. Well,
She's annoying.
Say that 'cause I'll walk into home and be like, you're like alive, Miss Rachel.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
But it's hard for adults to watch. But so if you are gonna sit down with Miss Rachel or Coco Melon or any other TV show, if you can interact with your kids while watching it. Oh, look, JJ's waving at his mommy. So it's more work than just playing, but if you are, the more interaction you can do during it, the better. Okay, we're really done this time. Look at that, I forgot what we're close. If we can change the beginning of the story, we can change the whole story. So that's where you guys come in and where we are happy to help. Thank you guys for inviting us to come today. We looked forward to it, had a couple heart attacks, one in the parking lot right before it started. But we really appreciate you guys letting us talk and sharing our information. So we're here to help you and we want to support you. I was telling Kristi earlier, like the people in this room and on virtual, like we don't even know you and we admire you so much for the work that you're doing with our tiny humans. And we're here to support you. So call us, let us know.
Thank you.